Are you going to be filming in my place today? It looks like Sophie is taking over. I hope you don't mind. Hello there, my beautiful, lovely, talented internet friends. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I really appreciate it. This video is sponsored by my amazing patrons. Thank you for sponsoring this video and for continuing to financially support this channel. If you're interested in being a part of that, check out the link on screen or in the description down below. But today we're gonna be talking about how valid or not valid, I'm giving you a hint right now, it is valid, it is to realize something was abusive or traumatic or bad weeks, months, years, decades after the fact. So I was listening to a live stream earlier today in which, I'll link it down below, it's a great conversation by God is Grey, which is a fantastic channel, in which the lady speaking said she realized something was abusive or something was traumatic a long time after it happened. It wasn't at the moment of its occurrence. And when I heard that, a couple things came up for me. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of realizing something was bad after it happened, not at the time. Does that really happen? What does that mean? I know a little bit about this from my own experience, as it is something that's happened to me. And I think when we discuss this, I don't know for you, but for me, when I hear this, what initially comes to mind is what someone might think if they are someone who has not experienced abuse and realized it after the fact. If I knew nothing about this subject and someone said to me, I realized 10 years later that what happened to me was abuse, I might sort of squint my eyes a little bit and think, well, was it really that bad or that abusive if it took you that long to realize it? Or, you know, memories can shift over time. Is that really accurate? I might question if I had no context for the situation, if I didn't understand how trauma worked. But since that is not me, since I am someone who has context on this, I want to talk a little bit about that. I'll start with an example from my own life. If you know anything about my story or you've watched this channel for a little while, you know that I was sexually assaulted almost a decade ago now. We're coming up on like 9 years. And that was always what I understood. And the narrative of myself that I had for, the first 5, 6, 7 actually years of recovering from that was, it happened once. There was a lot of other stuff that happened in the relationship that was kind of icky and not awesome, but I was sexually assaulted once, end of story. Now, there was more to that story. There was the fact that I never said yes the first time we slept together, that he pushed me and pushed me and pushed me, and I said no a bunch that night, and then eventually I just shut up. But you know what? I didn't say no again. So in my head, my narrative of that event was always, that was fine, that was whatever. I should have said no more, so that's my fault, right? So for many years, that was something that came up from time to time, like that wasn't a great thing that happened, but you know what? It's my fault, it's on me, so I'm not gonna loop that into the bucket of bad things that happened. It was a lot easier for me to recognize the sexual assault that I experienced when I left that relationship because it was just more clear. The situation, the circumstances were a little bit more clear. But I switched therapists a few years later, and as I was telling her my story, she eventually came back to this first occurrence of us sleeping together and just asked me to talk about it, and so I did. And as I was talking about it, with the understanding I had at that point in my healing journey, I realized, shutting up isn't consent. Shutting up is not saying it's okay. I gave no indication that it was all right to move forward with that. That was the first time I'd ever been with anybody. I said no a bunch, then I stopped saying no. Actually, that's not fine. Actually, that's not okay. Actually, that is abuse and that is sexual assault. And that was hard for me to realize years after it happened. That was hard for me to realize years after I had started being a part of the sexual assault healing community and talking about the stuff and sharing my experience and realizing that there was more to my story. There was more that had happened to me. There was more to process than I allowed myself to consider. A big reason for this, and a big reason why people do not realize bad things that have happened to them for a long time, is because I blamed myself for it. Simple, it's easy. It's a very common thing that many of us do. We blame ourselves for bad things that we've experienced. It is sometimes easier to deal when that's the case. You don't have to face the fact that things were actually outside of your hands, that someone really hurt you. So I blamed myself for that first time. I said to myself I should have said no more. I should have done something about it. I should have left. I should have whatever, instead of acknowledging the fact that that was also assault. And here's the thing, the fact that it took me half a decade to realize does not make it any less valid, does not make it any less painful or hurtful or harmful. The thing about trauma is it's really complicated. The thing about trauma is it takes a long time to untangle, sometimes decades, sometimes many decades. And as painful as that is, it is also okay. Trauma changes the way our brains work. Our brains work really hard to protect us from bad things. That's why some people have gaps in memories or have blackouts when really bad things happen. That's why, in my personal opinion, we're really good at blaming ourselves for things, because sometimes it makes it more palatable to think, I had a role in this. As painful as that guilt is, at least you can think to yourself, I played a part in this, therefore it's my fault. In conversations that I have with people from this channel, oftentimes I'll hear someone's realizing something for the first time. They're realizing that what they experienced as a child wasn't just an uncle, being really touchy and feely, it was actually abuse and assault. I've had more than one person write me and explain what's happening in their relationship, which involves physical and sexual and mental abuse and assault, and them ask me, this is normal, right? We are exceptional at rationalizing things away, at trying to make sense of things, and we make sense of them in the context that we have. For instance, when I was in the abusive relationship that I was in, a lot of things happened that I was not okay with, but I didn't allow myself to realize it at the time. I wrote it off as, that's just how men are, it's my fault for being a woman, he's really having a hard time, he apologized, he didn't actually mean it like that, it won't happen again, he said it won't happen again, I believe him. We go through this whole process of making things okay in our heads. The context that I had at that time was a very, very conservative Christian context in which it was women's fault if anything really happened to them. So I kept blaming myself for everything that happened in that relationship up until the breaking point that I had. If you've experienced trauma and you are realizing it now, if you have gone through abusive, bad things and they are suddenly coming to the surface, if you have experienced abuse or assault and this is something you are recently coming to the realization of or starting to think about, that's okay. It's okay, and in fact, it's pretty normal for it to take a while to come to the surface, a while to realize. Another reason that this happens is, like I said, our brains are good at protecting us. So sometimes things don't come to light until you are in a safer space, until you are in a better place to deal with it. I honestly think that that was kind of the case for me. When I switched counselors, started talking, I had grown a lot at that point, but I was also in a safe relationship with a good person. My home life was safe, it was stable, it was good. And I think I had the mental capacity to start accessing things I had repressed. Repressing trauma, also a super, super common thing. So if this is something you are experiencing, please know that it's not your fault. Please know that it doesn't make it any less significant, severe, or authentic. If it's taken a moment to realize what you actually went through or what you are currently going through, that's okay. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, and it doesn't make it less valid. If you are someone watching this video and you've heard a story where someone realized something, after the fact and you've questioned it, I can absolutely understand that urge. I can understand wanting to sort of pick at the story a little bit because wouldn't you realize it at the time? But understand that trauma does weird things to our brains, that abuse and assault really mess with the way we think about things. There are a lot of reasons why people might not realize it at the time, might not realize what they've gone through. In fact, it's fairly common, and it doesn't make it less severe or significant. Someone might have rationalized it away or blamed it on themselves. Their brain may have repressed it for a while. There are a lot of reasons why these things happen, and if you are someone who questions this, I hope you will look into it further, look into the psychology behind trauma. Like I said, it's pretty complicated. Our brains do funny things to try to protect us. Is this something you've experienced and you feel like talking about it? Or is this a new concept to you and you're not sure about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. I read every comment. I do not have a chance to respond to everyone, but please know that I hear all of your words. To you watching this video, thank you so much for spending a few minutes out of your day here with me today. You could be anywhere in the world doing anything, and you chose to hang out with me for a little while, and I really appreciate that. A huge shout out and thank you goes to my patrons over on Patreon. Like I said, if you are interested in financially supporting what I'm doing here, check out the link on screen or down below. There are also a few perks that you can get in return for that. I love you guys. I'm thinking about you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.